Hey, everybody, I'm Trevor,
And I'm Tom.
and this is Agency Real Talk, where we talk about agency stuff
And how to scale it for real.
because it's Agency Real Talk. And today we're talking about specifically, I think, a topic that's been very top of mind for a lot of agency owners. And the masterminds I've been, they've talked about it. Tom and I, you and I have talked about it. What is it that's on everyone's minds right now? We have to answer.
Decision making, when to trust AI and when to intervene. And a
And
couple other things,
human in the
actually.
loop, right?
Human in
How
the
you
loop.
how
Yeah.
you are that little bit. Because I don't know about you, I don't find AI output trustable yet, right? 90% of the time, it's probably okay, but that 10% is a son of a gun. And knowing how to make that work in your agency, I think is a big question for a whole lot of people, whether you're running an automations agency that's, one of the nation's leading ways to get something built to automate complex processes in your company, or whether you're building a marketing agency for early stage startups or any other type of agency, AI is on your mind. We'll talk about three different things I think you should think about for AI today, which one of them is decision making, another is creative work, and AI. That's a very touchy topic for some people. I'm onboarding an intern today, a design intern, and her first week is all just learning the AI design tools, learning Dolly, learning Midjourney, to like learning all of these because you're going to have to know it. And then finally, how do you keep relevant? How do you upskill? How are you part of the AI age and don't find yourself replaced by uh, someone's Chat GPT automated prompt? Those are our three topics for today. Let's start with decision making, which is when to trust and when to intervene. Tom, have you got an interesting story to share at all about using AI and seeing the AI either do really well or really poorly when left on its own?
Um, well, I think I've just seen a lot of bad examples with people thinking that AI is going to be the golden ticket, the silver bullet, the end all be all, the perfect way to solve a particular decision making problem. And I think part of it is just the reduction of thinking that AI is a solution as opposed to it just being another tool in your toolkit. And this decision making process of like when to trust AI and when to intervene. My co-founder Mark uses AI in fantastic ways. I learn a lot about how to leverage it really properly from him, actually, which is like using it to fill in the gaps of what you don't know that you don't know, and getting a lot of definitional or bounds of a particular problem, having it ask questions to help you expand on your own ideas, rather than thinking that you're going to give it all the data and it's going to arrive at a decision that is perfect. Right? These are large language models. They are predictive pieces of text. They are not logic based. They are not actually, strategizing. They are predicting what the next logical piece of text will be, whether or not that is connected to the ideas, the underlying ideas in the data that you're asking. So it's just a little different, right? Use it to amplify your own curiosity, your own ways of thinking about a problem, and using it to help prompt you what you might want to expand on, as opposed to uploading a couple CSVs and saying, "Tell me the strange pieces of this data," and then blindly following that. There's ways that it's going to assist you as opposed to be the literal decision maker.
Yeah, for sure. I have a an example here. I'll just pop this up. This is today. This is half an hour ago, right before this call. I had AI generate some content for me, and I fed it a transcript, and I said make some content, and then it gave me here's an example of a thing, right? A case study. I'm like, oh, that's cool, and then I like, well, let me Google this company because I know that the video transcript didn't mention this, and I'm like, hey, finally, is this real? And it's like, no, I made that up. And you're like, you don't want to post a case study about a company that doesn't exist and didn't do the things that the AI says it did, right? Or even the initial prompt I did with this, I have a giant like 6,000 word prompt I feed things to get them to put outputs, and this is all about Green Labs and things. And so I asked it to take the transcript I fed it and produce some content. And it went, hey, the power of minimum viable sprints in marketing, that's me, right? Like it just didn't at all do what it said it should. And then I was like, no, you wrote about some random thing, right? Do the right thing. These are both, this one's super obvious because I read the content and I went, no, that can't be right. The second one is the sneaky bit, right? If you just grab the content and you're like, oh, it's probably right, then you will get I've gone too far. Then you will get a hallucinated case that you think is real because whatever, you didn't read the transcript. And then you discover, oh no, I've made a mistake. That's where you have to have a human in the loop. Because I could just hook this up, right, via API, take the outputs from this and throw them to scheduling and just have this post go out with no human ever looking at it.
You could.
And until someone on LinkedIn or Twitter went, hey, I can't find these BioInnovate folks. Can you point me to where you got this case study from? And then you go, crap, I done screwed up, right? That kind of thing is why human in the loop is so crucial, because it's just predicting what the next most likely word probably is with a temperature variance to add some variability into not only picking the 100% statistically most likely next word. So got to be careful, right? But that means there's opportunity, because it is, large language models are witchy, right? Because we're so used to, in the modern era, communicating via chat. It really seemed like someone is alive on the other end of it. And as humans who personify our cars, right? The car has headlights and a grill, and you're like, oh, look, it's a little cute face. Or we have discussions with our pets like they care. Like, we put so much belief in sentience in just stupid things that of course we're going to see this and go, oh, there's sentience there too, but it's an alien, witchy, not really sentient, because it's not thinking, just the next word, right? And so go ahead, yeah.
I got a story for you actually with a good example of this. So shout out to Frank, the electrician we helped the other day. He does a lot of commercial spaces, and he was trying to use AI to generate quotes for a survey intake form. So there are a handful of different cable sizes and lengths and space. There's only so many variables inside of what an electrician does, and they have an intake form that collected all of this structured data. And he deals with one supplier, and that supplier has a big long PDF with all of the different prices and gauges and different information that is directly corresponding to the intake form that he has. So we built a simple agent inside of OpenAI and set this up with Zapier in under an hour, where he can take this form, send it to his agent. The agent can understand the form and the PDF and send an email back to the prospective customer and say, I'm an AI response, number one, CCing Frank directly, and then including all of the price and quote information, right? So you're doing a couple things there. You're declaring that this is an AI response and that
That's
it might
important.
be wrong, right? Which is actually really important. Tricking somebody is not going to help you make a sale. And you're actually CC'd on that email, so you have visibility into it. This is the type of human in the loop patterns that we're talking about. Using AI just to do something like generate a quote is fine, and it might be effective for your company, but it's really bad if you don't see it and you have no idea what is actually happening without your visibility. So being included in that response keeps yourself honest and allows you to see, is my AI actually helping me, right? Or is it saying everything's $1 million? Like what is the result here? So I think those types of patterns. I'll refer to patterns a lot with talking about this. Like those types of patterns are really helpful when you're thinking about where can AI be assistive while still you get oversight in it.
Yeah, and that is. I think that brings together a very important point, which is because AI LLMs are trained on the average of humanity, right? That means it's just as, I'll put quotes, but smart, right, as the average non-expert in a field.
Mhm.
So, because it's just predicting what the average Tom, Dick, or Harry would say in response here. Now, you can give it some information. You can throw a rag together and try to give it like training to go from. But even still, it skews towards just the median human. And we all know how intelligent those people are in areas that aren't their area of expertise, right? You ask me to quote out an install for an electrician, I'm going to get it comically wrong, even though there are things I am good at. That's not one of them. So, where you trust AI is when specialist knowledge isn't at a premium and you're asking it to do the kind of thing I would feel comfortable asking like a relatively junior hire to tackle with a clearly defined problem, that there's steps you can give it and your outcome then is easily checked against what the expectations are. If you can make all that happen, that's the pattern you can set for it, as you mentioned. And then it'll come wrong sometimes, and that's fine. And there are even ways to automate. When I'm building a automated output for AI, I always have the output ask the AI before something is sent to a final destination, is everything you just wrote true? Because the AI, again, about 10% of the time will go, no, I made that all up. And you're like, oops,
Mhm.
right? So, like, that's your decision making loop, is when you can easily test if this is output and uh, finding the right things to speed up. Strategy powered by an AI, you're going to tend to get a very generic strategy, right? But if you tell the AI, here's exactly how you should write this piece of content for me, here's an example, here's a new source doc, go make a new thing. Most of the time, it'll give you good outputs, and then one time in 10, it'll make up its own case study. I think that opens an opportunity for us to discuss, right? A lot of what agency owners are doing is we're doing creative work for clients.
Yeah.
And whether it is, I'm going to argue building an automation is actually creative work. You are solving a new unsolved problem, right?
It's a lot more creative than I think straightforward as its perception might be.
Right. Because you're like, oh, you just plug together API and API and Bob's your uncle. And then you're like, yes, but what about the 500 edge cases?
Well, and the 500 other ways that you might be able to solve the problem, or the workaround because you don't have certain access, or because the tool doesn't actually work in the way that you thought it would, or because the API doesn't even include that parameter that you wanted to get. Like there's so many different little facets where it is sort of a creative exercise of figuring out, how do I bake a cake with the ingredients that I actually have, not with what the
Yes.
directions say.
I have no eggs. Now what do I do?
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Good thing
Um,
you got Chia in the cabinet.
yeah, or whatever. Uh, so with that in mind, then, uh, I've got an intern I'm working with right now. Just onboarded her today. Uh, she's a designer. I onboarding her with my designer. I'm not going to be doing the actual design mentorship in general because I'm bad at it. But the idea of putting AI into all of your design is really important. It used to be you'd go find a stock library of, pick your art style, and then that's all you could have, right?
Mhm.
I used to pay, I think it was $40 a month for access to a library of thousands and thousands and thousands of created pieces of art in a variety of styles for my clients. Now, why would I? Right? I have an AI. I'm already paying $20 a month to for everything that can also do this, but it raises a question: is this ethical? Right? AI is trained on every image on the internet, every word on the internet. Where do you come down on this? Is it ethical to use these AIs, given that they're basically all of them, you can argue, stealing copyright?
Well, you can definitely argue that, or I don't know if it's active sense of stealing copyright, or at least stolen everything that has gone on from you know internet invention till now. I know there's a couple really interesting companies that are creating like image filters where when the AI reads it, it like changes what the image is of to sort of poison the training data to
Yeah.
try to eliminate this type of thing as a problem. It's really kind of sad, in my opinion, that all of these artists' work and all of the text driven written by humanity has now just been consumed in this thing that we can't see the inside of. But that's a different philosophical debate. It's
Okay.
kind of moot at this point. It happened, and we can't change that. Whether or not it's ethical going forward, I think it's not ethical going forward. Um, but I think there's a bunch of these open source like poison filters that are being applied as the market's response to saying, no, my art is mine and you need to ask me for it. And I think there'll be a bunch of other, little AIs that pop up that people train on their own art style and train on amalgamations of different AI driven art styles. Like there's not going to be one that rules them all. There's going to be 1,000 refractions and remixes of every potential AI there is or has been, which will be its own can of worms that we get to debate and debunk, from now until forever. But I think in terms of design and content creation, those are two specific areas where, at least in content creation, you're seeing detectors, right? AI detectors being able to say this is an AI blog post, and you're going to get really dinged for that. I would imagine in the search engine rankings in the long term. In the short term, it might not matter. In the short term, you might be getting ahead of the curve, generating thousands of pages with a whole bunch of AI content created. Good for you. Use Whale Sync and Software and Airtable. That'll work fine. But in the long run, that's not going to be a sustainable strategy, and you might end up hurting yourself more than you're helping yourself in the short term. Go in there with eyes wide open, right? From a design perspective, the best designs I'm seeing are drafts for non-technical people to get something to give to a designer. Like you're really not going to replace a person being able to design what it is you're looking for. And in almost all cases that I can think of, a human plus an AI is infinitely better than an AI by itself. And that's
Yes.
just not going to change because of these clumsy things we use called words and humans being clumsy beings to begin with. You need that ephemeral understanding that is just not quite there until we plug into the metaverse. But that's again a different story.
That's a ways down the way. I get that.
Yeah, I think so.
So it's interesting. Yeah, I approached this when I was learning. When I went to art school many years ago, back when Michelangelo was still painting. The way you learned was you'd go find a famous artist and you'd copy. And so I would. I mean, we didn't have a lot of great museums in Florida where I'm from, but I remember going to the Salvador Dali Museum. Uh, and I remember looking at, we had some copies of Pick Your Famous Bust, and you have to try and make all the tones, work on the wraparound for a marble head and trying to make it look like that's how we learn is by copying. And, you listen to a band you love and you learn to make cover songs from them. And every musician out there has the artist who inspired them and they know their whole discography and they will play them even at their concerts, some of those songs, right? That's how we learn. And to say an AI can't learn through the same corpus that we do, to me, there's a scale issue. I get it. But it still feels like we're saying, hey, it's okay when a human does it. It's not okay when an LLM does it. So I find that argument to not hold philosophical water, which is also why I'm okay using these tools. Because my view of this is just like a human could have learned to write like this by reading this content, an LLM did too, or design like this, or sing like this, or whatever like this. But as you pointed out, coming off pure from the AI, because again, what we see is the median output
Mhm.
of whatever type you're doing. I'm a pretty good writer, so I can very definitely notice how clumsily written most AI comments are. Now, whenever I go on Twitter or on LinkedIn, I see at least a third of all the comments are obvious, just ChatGPT plugged right in crappy responses, right? And I mean, that brings us to the dead internet theory, which we're rapidly approaching, which is almost no discussion you see on the internet is powered by a human. It's all just bots talking to each other. And there's some amount of truth in that, right?
Sadly.
But that means if you are creative and you are good at what you do, AI does the 80% lift that then you add 20% on top, or maybe the 90% lift that you add 10% on top. And what you need to learn, both as agency owner or agency founder, and as contributors in an agency, is if you're bidding against an agency where they use AI in their processes to get the 80% done and then fix it from there.
Mm-hmm.
I've already seen, and I'm adapting a couple different tools into CrowdTamer's creation of both visuals and text and media buying strategy as well, actually. And what I see is even with the little bit I've put in of the what I want to build, probably double the client work I can take on with my same team. And as I get better at putting these pieces in and writing internal tooling about this, we'll go to triple or quadruple because the beginning, the starting of this, how do I take something from nothing and look at the blank page and begin gets much easier. And your job should then be, as the human in this loop, AI's output is like a untrained junior employee in whatever field you're in. So take it, give the AI some feedback to improve it as much as you can quickly, and then run it the rest of the way yourself. And if you build the patterns in your company where this is how we write copy, this is how we do website mockups, whatever it is, you will discover that your velocity can increase tremendously. And because Cursor exists and Claude projects exist and all of these ways to actually have the AI write code for you exist, or you can also use your no-code tools to do the same thing. I've seen you build some projects. You can write custom tooling for your business, even if you're not a developer. That means what used to be $1 million project to ship, in a year worth of time to ship, is now one person with a really strong vision for what they want to make happen can use AI to develop an AI project in a couple months by themselves, part-time, be done, and suddenly have internal AI tooling that makes the whole company's creative output increase tremendously.
You could. And a lot of that starts with the psychological safety for your team to know that the AI is not replacing you.
Good point.
Right? So if you have a team and you want to enable them to upskill in this age of AI, the step one is like, hey, you and I are going to figure this out together, and we're going to be better on the other side of it. Not, hey, help me figure this out so I can fire you and the AI can do your job now, right? Like it's a little bit of a different narrative, and I think that so many people in roles that don't start with a C think that their job is in jeopardy, and that they might be fired because the AI gets packaged in a way with Jasper or with whatever service is going to come for their job. Look, the demand for technical people or for creatives, especially people that studied writing, studied philosophy, studied history, things that you read a lot. Like if you can write a good prompt, all of a sudden you have a superpower. Like people that haven't done those types of things are not able to intellectually joust with the AI to actually tease out the material that you need. And this is, again, just another tool to utilize. It's not something that's going to replace you. And if you're an agency owner struggling to figure out how can I harness this, rally your team around it to amplify them. Because I assure you, they're probably struggling also. And replacing them is not going to be the answer. It's just not going to work like that. So it's going to amplify your people and amplify your processes more than it's going to replace them. So consider that as your teams might be a little weary to adopt these new tools. It's going to be a lot more helpful to embrace with your existing team than it will be to try to replace them.
I agree. And one of the ways to, like, you talked about patterns and framing things, right, for AI, but also patterns and framing things for your team. And I've made it very clear to everybody who I've hired, to interns, to even interviewees for jobs. Look, 5 years from now, all of us are going to be mid-level managers on top of AI agents. That's just what it's going to be. And if you don't embrace that now, then you will discover that we haven't yet found a way to automate burger flipping. But I don't know if you want to be a burger flipper, right? Like, or maybe you want to be a carpenter or an electrician because we can't automate those away yet. Fine, but all the jobs of folks who are sitting on their butts watching this live stream or recording this live stream, you're standing. I seem to recall, not sitting on your butts. Good for you, Tom. But all of our work is going to end up with that lift. And if you're open about it now, and you tell your team, we've got SOPs and you should have SOPs. And if you don't have SOPs, go look. I think it's 6 months back. We talked about that on this live stream. You need to document these things and get your team involved in creating them, and then get your team involved in handing off bits of this to AI and make it clear to them this is not about I want to replace you. This is rather about, hey, how much more can we accomplish together when this is done, and it frees up brain space for other problems. One thing I find really, really useful, and there's a couple different ways to do it. One I just showed a little earlier was a tool called TeamGPT.
Mm.
And the benefit for TeamGPT, I keep flogging these guys. They don't pay me. TeamGPT.
They should, though. Hey, TeamGPT, you should probably pay Trevor.
Affiliate partnerships is over here. You can set up prompt libraries. And then what you do from this is you only need one good prompt writer in the company. And that prompt writer might take a prompt like, let me grab this one over here. This is the separate class I'm going to be giving relatively soon. Right. This is my monster just how to write copy prompt for AI. Right. So I'm now pasting this into the bottom of every prompt where the copy matters. And this then becomes, whenever anybody else in my company is making copy, they now have this giant prompt as well to improve their outputs. Or if I'm doing
non-native English speakers, by the way, which is
most of my team
a little helpful assistive touch.
Yeah. So you end up taking these pieces, and just one good writer levels up everybody's ability because we're sharing this prompt library. And so whether you're doing this with a tool like TeamGPT, whether you're doing this with a Google Doc that you're sharing, like having, as your team learns, oh, this got me the result I wanted, let me document and share that for all of us. That means you are collectively, the rising tide is floating all of your boats, and you are all improving each other's ability to automate this kind of thing away. So really embrace it, and embrace the fact that this is still quite a new tool. You all have to learn how to use it together. And when you build internal resources to improve everyone's skill, they will also take that and put in feedback loops and put in their own improvements too. I have each of my team, for their areas of expertise, every quarter, I want them to put in at least one new prompt that we don't have into a prompt library, so that I can see you've learned this thing and you're doing this thing, and now we can all benefit from that thing too.
That's a great goal. That's a great goal. I think that as a component of supporting human in the loop, right? That human in the loop can take a lot of different forms. What you're doing is putting the human at the beginning and the end of the loop, right?
Yes.
And there's patterns where we have a pattern where stuff happens and we draft something and then a human gets it. So the human is in the middle, right? And then approves, and it goes, syndicates downstream. Like, it doesn't matter where the human is, but just to calibrate expectations, you're not going to set these things on autopilot. period. And you shouldn't. That's not a good expectation for you to have, and it's not a good expectation for you to give your team. Autopilot does not exist right now. It may exist in the future. I'm not saying it's a never thing. I'm saying as a today thing, plan on having eyes on it at least once through the process. And that is going to let you learn, because you're not going to be able to upskill as an operator, as a founder, as a head of marketing, as a head of whatever, as a intro intern, as an intern just getting started with this thing. Your inputs allow you to learn and adapt and utilize the AI better, and being in the loop is a prerequisite to that.
Definitely. So, all right. Those are some relatively, I'd say, strategic discussions about how agency owners and operators should be thinking about AI in their agency. Any specific tactical thoughts you want to wrap this up with before we go for the day?
I think the choice of which AI sometimes gets a lot of attention. Claude, ChatGPT, some open source model,
Grok.
maybe. All of that I'd say is secondary, because once you design the prompt and you design your process, you can swap those in and out and do real tests. Try as much as you can to remove whatever internet aura there is around each one, because ultimately your prompt might be better suited for one or the other, or your business might be better suited for one or the other, and ultimately you're the only one that's going to be able to make that choice. And the internet buzz will be the internet buzz, and most of that is probably GPT driven anyway. So consider that when you're wondering which AI you should even choose. So long as your people are in the loop, you'll be in a good spot.
Definitely. That said, broadly on that, if currency of information matters, ChatGPT is the way to go. If quality of textual output matters, and I'd say willingness to do what it's told matters, I find that Claude and Claude projects work really well. If you just want to noodle around on stuff that you don't want any limitations put on, Llama running on a local device or in some own server works pretty well. And for visual outputs, the differences between Flux and DALL-E and Stable Diffusion and Midjourney, like what you want out of your project, you will find a surprising difference in each of them. And you basically, for any of these, you have to test and see. And also keep in mind, daily, weekly at the very least, daily sometimes, they're tuning the insides of these machines. Except for things like if you download Llama and run it on your own bare metal,
That'll be
the
consistent.
changes will only come as you put them. Otherwise, stuff is changing all the time. And the same prompt on 2 different days can give you dramatically different outputs as server capacity / internal feature tweak / whatever changes. You've got to have a flexibility for what is very much a frontier of computer science. And I remember reading a number that like 98% of people who've used ChatGPT tried it once and kind of went, and gave up on it. And then of the 2% who are left, the overwhelming majority of them use this like once or twice a month. And so if you're out here trying these models daily and deciding what's right for you right now for complicated projects, you're way at the bleeding edge of things. And stuff's going to get kind of weird, right? Accept that. But if you're an agency owner who's building these practices in right now, this year, next year, the year after, you will be at the edge of what client delivery looks like. And you can steal a march on the bigger agencies. I have a client right now. They're a marketing agency. They're way bigger than me. They're like 8 million or 10 million a year or something, quite a lot bigger than me. And they specifically came to CrowdTamers because they went, we need somebody agile enough to figure out this problem we need solved, that we are very experienced enterprise like marketing agency, and this is not our remit. If you're an agency who can be at that cutting edge, you will outpace the bigger, slower legacy people for a while. Make hay while the sun shines.
Yeah, that's a business architecture problem. That's not a, technology problem. Like small and nimble, right? And you can make decisions faster, and decision throughput is a lot of the goals here. We're talking human in the loop should be to amplify your decision making, right? Speed those decisions up because you are in the loop with some AI that's helping you make better decisions faster, helping you draft something faster for you to approve and go, or draft and redraft or modify and go. So it's going to be an interesting next couple of months and next couple of years. We're already starting 2025 discussions and figuring out what the things for 2025 are that we really want to institute from an internal tooling perspective. And we'll just say the ideas are wide ranging right now. We'll see where we land, but it's going to be exciting. But you can't do any of that unless you start playing with it. And tinkering is a good thing to do.
It is. Everything I've learned this last year on AI has all come from me just poking at stuff. I mean, Tom, you and I were trading back and forth on Slack. I was working with Suno AI on just making music tracks on like white cool. collar office worker songs that should have existed if like if we wrote about the things that we actually experienced. And
folklore. Yeah, exactly. There were a couple of really good ones. I really did enjoy the death metal one.
Yeah. We can't sing those lyrics. We'll get in trouble. I'll get YouTube blocked. But I'm still occasionally every month or so going back and seeing what new outputs come from these AIs. Right. That learning and tinkering is what makes a founder or an operator or a builder discover the need I have versus the new thing I discovered I can do, and oh, look at what I can make now. Go play, go learn, go build.
Yeah.
And then you will make a more efficient business because of
it. Can't build with blocks you don't know you have.
Yeah.
Just can't do it. Tom, so Trevor, how do they find you?
You beat me to it. You can find me on LinkedIn as Trevor Longino. Hang on, where's my hand? There we go. Literally only one of me on the internet. Or you can go to CrowdTamers, crowdtamers.com there. And that's my website. You can book a call if you have any questions about marketing and scale. And how about you, Tom? Where do they find you?
You can go to our website, X-Ray.
It's surprisingly hard.
Mirrored, I know. Xray.tech. You can find all our stuff there, or follow us on YouTube at X-Ray Automation. We just crossed crazy milestone, 11,500, something like that, subscribers. I think when we started this whole stream, we were at like, I don't know, maybe 1,000.
2,000. We're 2,000. I am just about to hit 100, so I'm definitely the junior partner in this.
The first 100's the hardest, Trevor. That's what they say.
That's what they say. I should hit it by, I think, end of the month if my current growth trends follow. So there we go. All righty. Thanks, everybody. I will see you.